Hi, this is me. My name's Scott Pike and I've been working on my Executive Masters of Business for the last 2 years at QUT. In this fast-paced video, I'm going to discuss corporate governance and accountability and hope to give you a great understanding in under 10 minutes. So let's get started. I'll cover the key concepts such as the board, its powers, roles and duties of the board, and board dynamics. I'll also cover academic theories of governance, ethics, and much more. So get ready to be bombarded with information. Let's say you have a great idea that you know people will love, and you are right, they love it. So you start a small business, and soon it grows to be a very big business. People love your business, and many want in. Your business needs to deal with a lot of things and is being very closely monitored as to how, when, and why your corporation acts in the way that it does. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's back up a little and take an internal view of the firm. When the business is small, the overall impact that the small business has on an external-internal environment is small, as the difference between the owner and the operational management is often the same person. However, a business of any size still has legal obligations to a number of parties like the taxman, creditors, and the law. As the business grows, the impact on the external-internal environment is much greater, and the owners and the managers are different people with potentially different interests. This leads us to requiring governance. Broadly, corporate governance refers to the mechanisms, processes, and relations by which corporations are controlled and directed. But which governance approach should be used? The most common is agency theory. Agency theory suggests that owners, the principals, require the managers, who are the agents, to run the operations on the firm on behalf of and for the owner's benefit. A cost is a concern between the principal and the agent. One such cost is opportunistic behaviour, which includes shirking and including excessive perquisites. Agency theory suggests a number of ways to control this cost, such as remuneration, balance of power, audits, and a board. More on that later. So agency theory appears to make a lot of sense. But what happens if the managers want to invest money in areas that don't provide immediate or apparent or ever shareholder value? Agency theory is of a model type Theory X by organisational psychologists. Theory X suggests that the model of a man is that of a self-interested actor rationally maximising their own personal gain. In other words, people seek reward and avoid punishment. A different view, stewardship theory, suggests that the role leaders don't just seek out reward, rather leaders are motivated by a need to achieve, to gain intrinsic satisfaction through successfully performing inherently challenging work, and to exercising power and authority and thus gain recognition. Under stewardship theory, managers aren't corporate shirkers and there isn't a problem of executive motivation. There are a few other governance theories, such as the resource-based view, which suggests that the primary function is to seek out and allocate resource. Ultimately, the question might not be what governance theory to pursue, but rather fitting the governance model, which may mean choosing multiple models given the context of the firm. This brings our attention to the board. Simply put, the board is established to act as representatives of the shareholders and govern the company in those shareholders' best interest. There is often a mix of executive and non-executive directors. These guys are non-executives. They seem to be independent and thus less susceptible to self-interest, although they can be significant shareholders or suppliers. While these guys, executive directors, hold a managerial position within the company, they are usually on the board to improve communication in two directions. One, to bring operational knowledge and intimate understanding of internal operations and resources, and two, to take the board's expectations and intentions to the operational arena. And then there is this guy, the chairperson. Often they have a greater responsibility, often a leadership role, and are in a pivotal communication role. Typically the company's CEO on the board, and as mentioned before, may be the chairperson. This is known as CEO duality. CEO duality is seen as a good thing under stewardship and is often avoided under agency theory. There's an argument in agency theory that suggests CEO duality lowers returns to shareholders, while stewardship theory says it'll increase returns. But no matter what type of director, they carry a substantial legal burden, and in the pursuit of good government requires a high level of transparency, accountability, and ethics. Directors' essential duties are to be honest, careful, and competent in their roles of directors. The duties fall under three main types: fiduciary, duty of care, and to make business judgments in line with the first two. How the board governs is directly dependent on the governance model. Remember, in agency theory, they handle agency cost. In stewardship theory, they ensure alignment between the structures to ensure the steward can fulfill their role and ensure that the steward is empowered. And in resource-based view, they provide the links to resources. Whatever the mix, the board must trade off the financial interests of those contributing capital against the broader societal and political consequences of ignoring stakeholders' interests. These are also known as the board's dilemma. And to whom are these duties owned? The company, not the shareholders, creditors or employees or other stakeholders. A quick note on structure and activity. Over 75% of board members are non-executive. The main concern in determining board composition is having enough people with the necessary expertise and qualities to direct a particular corporation. The top 100 ASX listed companies have between 4 and 15 members. Legal minimum size of the board is 3, 2 of which must reside in Australia. Some say it's not rules and regulations, but rather the way people work together that make boards great. A valuable tool is a charter. It can establish process-like norms, team building, reflective improvement, evaluation and basis for strategic boundaries between what is board work and what is management work. A charter document isn't the be-all and end-all. There is risk that it becomes a document that sits on the shelf and grows cobwebs. The process of establishing the charter has enormous value, and new members need to undergo the same journey. Therefore, the charter document needs to be a living process and not just a document. Key to board dynamics are great meetings. The frequency, content, participants, and location of the meeting are all vital to ensure that the board gets the information it needs and can establish its directives. In order to ensure that the meeting establishes binding decisions, a quorum is required. The in-meeting dynamics is vitally important, and key to that is the development of agenda for a successful board meeting. A good agenda should estimate the value at stake and be organised based on this to ensure that the key issues are discussed up front. Focus on decision outcome to ensure that there are choices that can be acted upon. And overall, the agenda should ensure that a plan is well formulated and is grounded and thus achievable. Also, the agenda and the board papers should be distributed well in advance to enable the board members to perform their due care and diligence, typically 5 to 7 days prior, a legal obligation of the board. Remember to take great minutes in your meetings. This is also a legal obligation. Remember duty of care, and ensure that your action lists are kept up to date and reviewed in each meeting. Ultimately, the aim of a clear and well-established and executed plan is to give board members the space and information they need to be effective. At the core of governance is people, and where people are involved, ethics must be understood and clearly defined for the corporation. The report card of corporate collapses in the early 2000s caused shareholders to demand ethical behaviour. But what is ethics? Reviewing a history of ethics shows an evolution from the ancient times where the focus is on the individual's self-awareness and a virtuous balancing act, to the modernist ethics of the group dichotomy of the ends justifying the means or the means justifying the end. In a postmodern world where perspectivism or relativism or the power-controlled interpretivism is on the mind of contemporary academics. Despite the evolution of ethical theory, ethics generally fall into descriptive or normative ethics. Descriptive ethics asks, what do people think is right? Whilst normative ethics asks, how should people act? So business ethics is a field of applied ethics that asks, how do we take the moral knowledge and put it into practice, which is normative. Whether the ethical underpinnings is ancient, modern or postmodern, the call for a code of ethics is becoming commonplace. A code of ethics is designed to guide organisation members in understanding the difference between right and wrong, and in applying that understanding in their decisions. Ethical codes are often adopted by management not to promote a particular moral theory, but rather because they are seen as pragmatic necessities for running an organisation in a complex society in which moral concepts play an important part. They are distinct from moral codes that may apply to culture, education and religion of a whole society. Often, acts that violate ethical codes may also violate law or regulation and can be punishable at law or by government agency remedies. Even organisations and communities that may be considered criminal in nature may have ethical codes of conduct, official or unofficial. Examples could include hacker community, bands of thieves and street gangs. So there you have it. To recap, corporate governance is required by corporations big or small and is broadly the mechanisms, processes and relations by which corporations are controlled or directed. There are a number of theories of governance such as agency theory, stewardship and resource dependency theory. The theory adopted by the firm will have an impact on how the owners and managers interact and are incentivised to act in the best interests of the owners. In larger business, a board that consists of directors is commonly put in place to deal with this interaction, and to be successful, board dynamics and board process is key to an effective board. All of this is to be underpinned by ethics, essentially by knowing what is right and what is wrong. The Code of Ethics is a common tool for promoting the ethical intent of the company. Thanks for taking the time and allowing me to take up under 10 minutes of your time to talk to you about corporate governance. I'm Scott Pike. Bye bye for now.